I arrive at the office of Central Elementary School to be the sub for Mrs. Garcia's 4th grade class. The secretary tells me, "We can't find the key to your classroom, so just head on over there and we'll send the custodian to let you in. You can just leave the door unlocked, okay? Hope you didn't bring anything valuable." "No, just my laptop." Feeling September's 85-degree heat bouncing off the blacktop already at 8 a.m. as I stand around outside of room E4 waiting for the custodian, I reflect on this crazy side hustle of mine. On the continuum from babysitter to school teacher, somewhere in the middle is substitute teacher. Because babysitters have only like 2 kids, and teachers actually know their routine, subbing could very well be the hardest of the 3. But they train us, right? No, not so much. With my ever-useful computer science major to support me, I only had to take 2 classes to become a sub. 1, how to avoid sexually harassing my coworkers. 2, how to recognize signs of child abuse, and more importantly, how to avoid being accused of it yourself. Like when little kids come over and they want to hug you, the correct answer is let them, mostly on your side, but so they don't feel rejected, but don't hug them back. Kind of sad when sometimes a little hug might be just what they need, but you can't risk it. I'm not saying these 2 courses were bad to have, but every single year I've had to take those 2 classes, and yet never in 20 years of subbing have we been offered classroom management, conflict negotiation, first aid, or the bizarre ways that they teach math now. That is real. But you learn to adapt. One of the adaptations is learn to hit the ground running. So, to do so, I try to look into the room to get a feel for my space. All of Mrs. Garcia's blinds are closed, a smart move to try and keep the heat out. So I can't see through the big windows, but there's a little window on the door, and I can peek through that and get a feeling for it. I can see the first third of the room, at least that much. Some teachers cover that little window, but happily Mrs. Garcia hasn't. I see a neat little room with lots of colorful posters. Over her desk, I see a big one with a yellow cartoon bird holding a pencil with the caption, "I've got you under my wing." Sweet. The one thing I'm not thrilled is to realize that room E4 borders on the playground and the lunch arbor. That's rough, because I want to keep that door open for any hint of a breeze, but the noise from both recess play and lunch chaos will be right outside my sweltering, non-air-conditioned room. Tough enough to keep kids focused on these hot days, but add the sound of other kids having more fun than them, it's even rougher. The kids arrive, and to my relief, they're nice. "What's your name?" "Mr. Milo." "Is that a New York accent?" "Yes, it is." "Are you a nice teacher?" "If you behave, I will be." A few remember me from subbing from them in 3rd grade, and thanks to the seating chart, if I recognize them, I can get away with, "Kona, good to see you again," or "Francisco, you're still here? I thought you were in college," even though he's 8. This cracks Francisco up, and I score points. We read a chapter from Charlotte's Web, review some 2-digit multiplication, learn why there's sometimes an apostrophe after the S, what? And before you know it, it's lunch. I walk them the 30 feet or so to get in line for lunch, and I head back. The play yard is really noisy, but it's just too hot not to prop the door open fully. I sit at the desk, enjoying my tuna sandwich, and work on a story I've been writing. And you get used to tuning out that din of children's voices so that you can just bang! I discovered that my brain can simultaneously think, what the fuck was that, and know that the only answer is gunshot. That was a gunshot. I go cold as every instinct of self-preservation comes up against what I hear, the previous sound cacophony of children's play turning into instant mass terror. I've been through hundreds of fire drills and earthquake drills, But this, zero preparation. And every child eating lunch or on the playground is now running, panicked and frantic, toward the wide open door that they see. Before I can even cross the room, they're coming in fast. 10, 20. I'm pushing my way against the sea of them. 30, 40. This is not happening. I fight my way against the flow to the door. 50, 60. If I close some of them out, those kids are open targets. But every second that door is open gives the shooter the chance to see the perfectly packed room choice for a huge massacre. At least 70 kids have passed into my room, and 5 more are still coming toward me from further away. All Star Trek logic says close the door for the good of the many, but I can't do it. Slam the door in the faces of they're coming? I can't live with myself if I do that. I yell, hurry, faster! And I push each one into the packed space to make room for the next one coming. As that 5th and final boy outside closes the threshold, I slam the door shut, and only then does it come back to me that I have 75 kids and no key. I snap the lights off. The kids are in a noisy panic, but something about the suddenly darker room sobers them up a little, and the voice volume drops to about half, giving me a fleeting moment to say something. So without any thought to how it would land, I cry out, if he hears you, this will be the first room that he chooses. I hear how horrific, how wrong it sounds as soon as it comes out of my mouth. But at least the room goes from Chuck E. Cheese loud to empty church silent in a second. Scared stillness. Everyone under the desk and cover your heads. Intense scurrying as 75 kids impossibly try to get under 20 desks. In 2s and 3s, keeping their eyes on me. They're absolutely unprepared, undertrained. Bang! Equally loud, and I can't tell if it was closer or not. I instinctively and uselessly pull on the door. Since it pulls out, I can't even use my body weight to keep it closed. Over a fucking lost key, our wooden barrier only protects us from this bastard for like 2 seconds. I took up teaching in part because I genuinely like kids. But the first time, I can't think about them at all, or their feelings, or their fear. I have to tune all of that out and think, not my strong point. The door is closed, the blinds are closed, he can't see in, except the window in the door. It has to be covered. He'll see the 20 or 30 kids who are in the front part of the room. Clear as day, right under their desks, under the poster. I've got you under my wing. But I can't go covered. I have to hold this door, don't I? I don't know what to do. But if I'm not going to cover it, I do know I have to move those kids that he could see. Everyone in the front of the room, move onto the blinds instead. No one moves because it sounds so ridiculous. So he can't see you through the little window in the door. A massive scramble of crawling ensues. Now virtually no one is covered by anything anymore, as they all hug up against each other in little pods of 2 to 4, as close to the big Venetian windows as they can get. But have I just set them up to be sitting ducks in a line? A literal shooting gallery? I don't know. The handle. It just occurs to me that the handle needs to feel locked at least. I try and hold it exactly in the middle while pulling it toward me. It is ludicrous because more likely than not, he'll startle me and the handle will turn somewhat still right through my trembling hands, but maybe not. I don't know if anything I'm doing makes any sense, and the kids keep looking at me. What else could I have missed besides stupidly putting half of them right in his line of sight? And then I spot something I've seen all day long, but never gave a thought to till that moment. There is a door connecting E4 to the class next door. That opens up all kinds of new scenarios, some good, but more really bad. Despite knowing that I have to hold that front doorknob, still I have to check if that other door is locked. I scramble low to the ground to get to that door and I yank on the handle. It's locked. At least on our side it is. I take a quick moment to look out at the kids. The silence is astounding. No one is crying. At least not aloud. They're just looking at me like I must know what I'm doing, and I couldn't feel less like I have any idea. Like later someone is going to say to me, how could you not have something? Suddenly a voice rings through the PA system. Attention everyone, you are safe. There is no shooter. The kids gasp. I put a shaky finger to my lips and shake my head at them fiercely. They get me, not a sound. Because I've seen that documentary where the shooter makes the secretary say words almost exactly like that right before he blows her head off. I'm not convinced. What we heard on the block outside the school was 2 different SDG transformers exploding on the power lines. Maybe. Would that sound exactly like gunfire? Students who go home on the east side of the school, that's over by the dumpsters, will have to be picked up by their parents on the west side today. Okay, that's not a shooter script. That's a principal preparing for a hectic dismissal later. I wave the kids up toward the front of the room. I tell them they're safe and that everything is good again. And that I'm very proud of them. They start standing up, meandering somewhat aimlessly. One of the girls closest to me catches me off guard by throwing her arms around my waist and burying her face in my belly. My training instinct of "you can't do that" kicks in, but I can't bring myself to push her away. So instead I drop to my knees and allow her to hug me around the neck instead of my waist, though I'm not quite sure what to do with my hands. Another girl steps up and hugs her from behind, and then someone's around my shoulder and at my back, and they're at each other's backs until we're just a big clump of people all hugging each other with me somewhere in the pack. There are tears running now and some sniffles, but for the most part, it's still pretty silent. There's nothing to say. They just need to feel close with the people they've just been terrified with and we're now instead safe together with. The first girl instinctively kicked it off with me, but had little to do with my being the teacher. That convergence of them all would have happened just the same if I hadn't been there. It was just a sudden, intense need for connectedness with people who understood. After a few minutes of awkwardly keeping my hands by my side, I look up and I see the poster, "I've got you under my wing." I couldn't listen to the district programming in my head or hold it together anymore. Now that the crisis was over, I'm done. Without looking, I reach my arms out beyond her shoulders, and they land on the shoulders of a couple of kids behind her, and I pull them all in a little. I don't know which kids it is, it doesn't matter. They may be only 8 or 9 years old, but in this moment, they're my peers. I feel myself let my weight go, and I exhale, maybe for the first time since the first explosion. And as to all those courses I had to take on inappropriate physical contact with children, bite me. Those kids needed hugs, and so did their substitute teacher. Thank you.
Milo Shapiro, ladies and gentlemen, Milo.